It is XFL Week 2. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Thursday Night Football back on our TVs. I'm trying to get the people hype, okay? Spring football is hard to sell. I am here for the people.
All right. This is going to be the segment where I tee you up because I don't know anything about the XFL. Saw bits and pieces outside of lemons being thrown at your game at Audi Field.
So fun.
The beer snake. Bring back the beer snake, people. Let it happen. Like, come on. It's one of the few things that you've got going for you. Bring it back.
Yes, that was, my broadcast career was all really leading up to that moment of being an investigative journalist on the beer snake and why it was being confiscated and where the lemons came from that were being thrown on the field. By the way, it was from a beverage that was being sold in the stands. They had it looked like it was full lemons that were just being chucked onto the field, but they were squeezed in a drink and then released.
I did like the fact that watching that broadcast, Harry Douglas was on the sidelines with you as well. That you guys fully embraced the lemon throwing. You know, if this was a college football game or an NFL game, oh my gosh, this is outrageous. How could you do this? That's all right. You know, it's kind of fun.
No, it's the XFL. It was for sure the most raucous fan base that we had all weekend, and that entire end zone reeked of beer. One of the more embarrassing.
Good job, DC, making me proud to be a Washingtonian. Thank you.
I'm at DC.
Keep drinking.
Again next weekend. So we'll see what happens with the beer snake scenario. I need to set up an interview with a representative from the XFL and find out the nitty gritty.
I blame The Rock. Call The Rock and make him bring back the beer snake.
I have Dwayne.
Come on.
Dwayne on
Rock,
speed
make
dial.
it happen.
Me and DJ.
Before we get into these games, though, I want you to kind of explain some of the unique aspects to the XFL. And I think some of the things that, these leagues and, everyone for a long time, the original XFL run by Vince McMahon was kind of a punchline. But when I watched the 30 for 30, a couple of the aspects that they brought to the XFL were really unique, which was like different camera angles and access. So a couple tweaks that the XFL have, which certainly can play into betting, because I think most people assume just play unders in the new league. Not necessarily the case because of the point structure. So overs went 3-1 in week 1 of the XFL, Stormy. What are some of the strategies these teams can go about when it comes to after touchdown? Because it's not just 1 or 2, you could actually have a 3-point conversion.
Yeah, and what we noticed, especially in week 1, was that no lead is safe in the XFL because of that scoring structure. So a touchdown is your typical 6 points, but then you have the opportunity to go for a 1, a 2, or a 3-point play after the touchdown. And largely the 1-point conversions were not successful week 1. They were 1-7. And most teams actually went for 2 or 3.
The 1 is, where does the 1 take place from?
From the 1-yard line.
Oh. Need the Jalen Hurts two-cheek sneak there.
Right, exactly. But hey, if the NFL's
so you said
about to make it illegal.
The 1-point conversion went 1 of 7?
1 of 7.
Wow.
So most teams even told us kind of going in based on the numbers and analytics that they had come through. Look at this, analytics in the XFL. That they had done on their own, said that the 2-point plays would be the most successful. And in talking to Harry Douglas and some other former players that were receivers, they all said, give us the 3-point play, give your receivers a little bit more space to maneuver. They preferred that angle, and we saw that with Seattle in the game that I was working, Seattle and DC. They went for 3 every time. So get to know different coaches' tendencies, strategies, the way that they want to play it. But I think that the 1, 2, and 3-point play is a big game changer because we saw in the in the St. Louis Battlehawks game, they're down 15-3 with a minute and a half to go. And they end up winning that game because they convert the 3-point play. In the fourth quarter, there's an alternate to an onside kick where you can go for a 4th and 15.
I love that.
They convert that, score, and go for more points after the touchdown again and end up winning 18-15. So they won and covered after being down 15-3 with a minute and a half to go.
See, that's what I'm talking about for the XFL. That's the excitement that you need. So the 4th and 15, I think, is... I don't know if it'll ever be adopted, but I really love this as an alternate because every once in a while you'll see an onside kick be recovered, but the recovery rate is so small. 4th and 15, I'm not saying that, you would it's a high hit rate. But any team I think you ask in the NFL, you would say, would you rather run a 4th and 15 play with a Patrick Mahomes or have your kicker hopefully pop up an onside kick? I'd be curious at some point down the road if we ever get to the point of implementing this into the NFL, because I think this is, from what I've seen so far, Stormy, this is the most unique and creative way, the new thing I should say, that XFL has brought into football.
Well, and something that I think has been a reason why previous iterations of the XFL and other spring football leagues have failed is because they try to be a competitive force with the NFL, which is something that you're just never going to be. The format that Dwayne Johnson and co-owner Danny Garcia have put together here is that they really want to be a developmental league and a feeder league to the NFL. And that is not only feeding players, but feeding ideas. And the 4th and 15, the kickoff that promotes returns over touchbacks, the listening in on officiating. There's a lot of things that the NFL has a relationship with the XFL for and is trying to see what things they might want to integrate at a later date.
Well, I'll say this too about the comeback. So you mentioned, what was it, St. Louis had the comeback, AJ McCarron's team, right? In-game betting, if books allow it, I don't know. I mean, look, books are trying to figure this thing out too, but it certainly feels like in-game betting is going to be advantageous, right? Because of the ability to come back. Are you guys incorporating gambling bunch on the broadcast?
We are. And I'm actually really excited because on my crew, I'm kind of the only one that really gets betting. So I get to kind of have my little niche over here of talking about it. And for example, in the game I was working with Seattle and DC, you could get Seattle, and they ended up not being able to pull it off, but you could get Seattle when they had the ball driving down 2 points at 4-1 live. And so things like that we're trying to incorporate in the broadcast, I think that's one way that you can grow your audience for the XFL is by just really leaning into betting. And it's cool that ESPN has interest in doing that.
100%. And you saw that before, COVID hit in 2020. I remember the XFL starting to kind of gravitate towards betting here. So, no, I think that embracing gambling, being creative, and not trying to be a competitor, all those things are going to try to, build this thing up, ultimately for the league. So
our last minute here, I do just want to touch on the game that is tonight.
Yeah, Battlehawks and Sea Dragons.
Yes,
what do you got?
Exactly. This thing has been bet up like crazy from 2.5 to 4 just over the course of the last 24 hours. I think Seattle is the right side, but I don't like it now that it's gotten up to 4. I'll be curious what the environment is in Seattle because the Kraken do host the Bruins tonight as well. And Seattle was supposed to have a good fan base, but short turnaround because they played the latest game on Sunday night, 8 Eastern kickoff, and now they're playing the earliest game of the week, a short week. Two teams that had completely opposite starts. Seattle got out the gate super hot in their game against DC and then just fell to the wayside. Ben DiNucci had multiple turnovers, couldn't get it together. Meanwhile, St. Louis did nothing for 57 minutes, and then they turned it on, and A.J. McCarron came up in the clutch. I prefer the coaching edge that Jim Haslett, a former NFL Coach of the Year, is going to have in Seattle over Anthony Becht, a former player who just made his head coaching debut a week ago. Their defense looked really, really good as well, held D.C. to just 177 yards, and there are some offensive line issues for Seattle. I think for St. Louis. I think that Seattle defense can get after A.J. McCarron a little bit in this spot. So that's the way that I'm playing it.
Anytime you can lay 4 points with Ben DiNucci, you have to do it. You just have to trust former James Madison dude.
You really don't.
The Nooch, baby.
You really don't have to.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.